Before the war, he was no one, a name among millions, a shadow among crowds, a man who worked, ate, and lived modestly in the streets of Warsaw. He was not a soldier. He was not a criminal. He was not trained by any government or army. He was simply a watchmaker, a quiet man with careful hands, patient eyes, and a life that moved with the steady heartbeat of ticking gears. His neighbors barely noticed him. His friends described him as polite but withdrawn. He lived alone, he spoke little, and he preferred silence over conversation. No one, not a single person, could have guessed that within this quiet man lay the seed of a legend the Nazis would come to fear, a legend they would name Der Geist von Warschau, the Ghost of Warsaw. The fall of Poland in September 1939, Hitler unleashed Blitzkrieg, lightning war. Warsaw shook as bombs rained from the sky. Buildings collapsed like paper. People ran through smoke-filled streets. Families disappeared beneath rubble. The city screamed. The man who once repaired watches watched his entire world break. He tried to help his neighbors. He pulled people from wreckage. He passed out water bottles. He bandaged wounds. But he was only one man. What could he do? He didn't know. Not yet. The moment his life changed one afternoon, during a bombing raid, he heard a scream outside his apartment. A German soldier, belonging to a patrol, had cornered a young woman against a wall. She was crying, begging, terrified. The soldier aimed his rifle at her head. "Nie, pros, noise." The quiet watchmaker stepped out of his door without thinking. He didn't shout. He didn't fight. He simply grabbed a brick from the rubble and struck the soldier's skull with all the force his trembling arms could muster. The German collapsed instantly. The woman ran. The watchmaker stood frozen. He looked down at his hands. At the brick. Something inside him shifted. Something broke. Something awakened. He realized that he could no longer simply watch the world fall apart. He had to become part of the storm. The first weapon, he dragged the soldier's body into a ruined stairwell, took his rifle, took his ammunition, took his uniform badge. He stared at the weapon for a long time. It felt heavy, not in weight, but in consequence. He had never fired a rifle before. He had never harmed anyone before today. Now he held the key to his transformation. Not a soldier, not yet, but no longer a watchmaker. The gears of his life had shifted. The occupation begins when the Germans entered Warsaw fully. The city fell under brutal rule. Curfews, arrests, executions in the street, Jews forced into ghettos, homes raided, men and women dragged away, never to return. Resistance groups formed quietly in the shadows. But this man, he did not join any of them. He believed small groups were too easy to expose, too easy to infiltrate, too easy for the Gestapo to crush. Instead, he slipped deeper into solitude. He watched. He studied patrol routes. He learned which German units guarded which districts. He marked where officers slept, ate, smoked cigarettes. He listened to their routines, their patterns, because a watchmaker sees the world differently. He sees gears, he sees motion, he sees flaws in the mechanism. And Nazi occupation was just another mechanism. One he intended to break. The first shot. It was cold that morning. Snow dusted the ruined buildings. German soldiers marched through the streets, laughing, confident. The watchmaker climbed to the roof of a half-destroyed house, crawled forward slowly, locked the stolen rifle against his shoulder. He looked down at a group of 3 soldiers. They weren't hurting anyone. They were just walking, but they were enemies. Occupiers. Men who had turned his city into a graveyard. He steadied his breath. Exhale. Time slowed. The way only a watchmaker understands time. He aligned the iron sights. Then he pulled the trigger. 1 shot. 1 dead soldier. The other 2 panicked, ducking behind cover. The watchmaker did not move. He waited. A second soldier poked his head out. Another shot. Another kill. Silence. The third soldier ran. The watchmaker let him go. He wanted him to run. He wanted the fear to spread. The city whispers a new name over the next week. More Germans fell. Always from a distance. Always 1 shot. always disappearing before anyone could find him. Patrols started talking. There is a shooter in the city. He kills without warning. No one sees where he fires from. He vanishes like smoke. The Gestapo grew nervous. The SS doubled patrols. Officers demanded reports. Someone whispered the name. Der Geist. The ghost, it stuck. The ghost's rules, the watchmaker created 3 rules. Rule 1, never fire twice from the same roof. Rule 2, never stay longer than 4 minutes after a shot. Rule 3, never kill civilians, only soldiers, officers, and collaborators. He practiced climbing buildings silently. He moved only at dawn and dusk. He slept in abandoned basements. He became a shadow, a whisper, an uncertainty in every German patrol, in their confidence, a ghost in their city. Every time a soldier stepped to the street, they wondered, "Am I next?" The shot that changed everything. One snowy evening, he spotted a German officer, a lieutenant, escorting a group of civilians to a truck. The civilians were crying. Some were begging. Some screamed. They were being taken to Pauiak prison, a place no one returned from. The ghost took position in a ruined bell tower. Wind cut across his face. Snow stung his skin. He steadied his breath, aimed at the officer. But at that moment, an old man grabbed the officer's jacket, pleading for mercy. The officer struck him with his pistol. The ghost did not hesitate. He fired. The officer fell backward into the snow. The prisoners froze. The German soldiers panicked. The ghost vanished into the tower's shadows. But that night, everything changed, because the prisoners went back to the ghetto and whispered, "There is someone out there killing the Germans. Someone watching us. Someone protecting us." Hope, something nearly extinct, began to spark again. The Gestapo arrives. The Germans were furious. They realized this was not random, not chaos, not luck. It was a single man. A man with discipline. A man with patience. A man with intelligence and cold precision. The Gestapo commander of Warsaw declared, "Find him. Break him. Hang him in the street." But they didn't know you cannot catch a ghost. Warsaw was no longer just an occupied city. It had become a hunting ground. And somewhere inside its ruins moved a ghost. A man the Germans hated, feared, and could not understand. By the second month of his silent war, 23 German soldiers and 3 officers had been killed by the same unseen hand, always one shot. Always calm. Always vanishing without a trace. Rumors spread among the occupying forces. He can see in the dark. He shoots through walls. He is not human. He walks between buildings like a spirit. Fear began eating the Nazi ranks from the inside. And fear in war is more deadly than bullets. The Gestapo takes control. The Gestapo commander of Warsaw summoned his officers. He slammed his fist into the table and shouted, "We are being humiliated by a single man. A watchmaker, they say. A rat hiding in ruins." Silence. He pointed at a map of the city. "He kills here, here, always moving like he knows our patrol routes." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. It was true. The ghost understood the city's rhythms better than they did. "Starting tonight," the commander growled, "we deploy Operation Crow." Operation Crow. Operation Crow was not a routine search. It was a purge. Operation Crow. The first hunt the Germans unleashed. 40 Gestapo agents, 110 SS soldiers, 660 military police, a sniper detachment, street barricades, curfews, with shoot-to-kill orders. Hundreds of boots thundered across cobblestone streets. Dogs barked. Spotlights swept rooftops. Megaphones ordered civilians into their homes. But for all their power, all their numbers, all their noise, they did not see the man already watching them. He hid in the burned-out shell of a bakery, the rifle barrel resting through a crack in the bricks. He watched them move. He studied their patterns. He memorized who barked orders, who scanned rooftops, who walked carelessly. He whispered to himself, "Too many. Wait." Patience. It was his deadliest weapon. The first Darash at dawn, German patrols converged on Ulika Miodowa, a street of collapsed houses and ghostly silence. They surrounded a building they believed the ghost had used in a previous shooting. They kicked down doors, searched cellars, dragged civilians into the street. Then, from a rooftop opposite them came a single shot. A sergeant collapsed, a bullet through his temple. Panic erupted. The Germans fired wildly. Streets echoed with machine gun bursts. Bricks shattered. Dust clouds rose. But when they stormed the rooftop, nothing. Just a shadow. Just a spent cartridge case. Just the cold wind. The ghost had struck again. The ghost's new tactic. Silent corridors, he perfected a new method. He would fire from a rooftop, then slide through a hole in the wall into an adjacent building, down a stairwell, into a cellar, out a broken rear door, and reappear 3 streets away. All German troops reached the original firing point. Warsaw's ruins became his labyrinth. The Germans realized they weren't hunting a man. They were chasing an invisible presence that understood the city's skeleton better than its architects. The decoy kill one night, he did something brilliant. He placed a dummy rifle barrel between roof tiles on a building corner. A German patrol spotted it and opened fire. Dozens of bullets shredded the brickwork. The ghost was 3 rooftops away. While the Germans emptied magazines into the decoy, he aimed at their commander. 1 shot. The officer fell. Chaos. He vanished again. The creation of a special unit. Ghost Hunter's humiliation burned through the German ranks. The Gestapo chief formed an elite team. Jagdkommando Geist, the ghost hunting commando. It included 6 Gestapo snipers, 3 sharpshooters, a tracker with experience in anti-partisan warfare, 2 undercover operatives and a handler with German shepherds trained to smell gunpowder. They were ordered. Find him. Break him. Bring me his head. They studied his attacks, analyzed bullet trajectories, mapped his possible hideouts. For the first time, the ghost faced a real threat. The ghost becomes a target late one night while he prepared to take a shot at a checkpoint officer. A muzzle flanked from a distant window. A sniper shot. The bullet missed his head by inches, clipping his ear. Blood ran down his neck. He froze. Someone had found his position. He crawled backward, sweating, breathing slow. He had underestimated his hunters. For the first time, the ghost felt a spark of danger, and something else, excitement. The ghost turns the tables instead of retreating. He changed positions and began hunting the hunters. He tracked the sniper's trajectory, calculated the angle, moved through buildings like a shadow. After 20 minutes, he found the window the shot came from. Inside was a Gestapo sniper still watching his old position. The ghost took aim. The man never saw him. The dogs find his scent, but the Germans were not finished. The tracker released the dogs. They sniffed through rubble, followed faint traces of gunpowder, moved closer and closer. The ghost heard barking behind him. He looked back. 2 dogs, 3 soldiers. Only seconds away, he climbed a collapsed stairway, slipped through a broken ceiling, and crawled across beams suspended over a courtyard. Just as the soldiers entered the room below, dust fell on their helmets. They looked up, but he was already gone. The city now fights with him. Something had changed. Civilians began helping him. They left doors unlocked, left food at hidden corners, tapped on walls to warn him of patrols, covered him with blankets during curfews, gave him escape routes through ruined apartments. He wasn't fighting alone anymore. He was becoming a symbol, a rumor, a hope. To the people of Warsaw, he wasn't a sniper. He was revenge. The ghost's first message one morning, the Germans found a phrase scratched into a wall near a dead officer. This city has its own soldiers. We do not wear uniforms. Signed simply, G. The commander read it, trembling with anger. This man is mocking us. But fear crept into his voice, because he finally understood. They were not fighting a man. They were fighting an idea. The Nazis plan a trap. The Germans designed their most elaborate trap yet. Fake patrol routes, fake officers acting as bait, hidden snipers, armored vehicles waiting in ambush, entire streets cordoned off, a perfect snare. The ghost couldn't know. Or could he? As night fell, a single rifle shot echoed across the city. One of the fake officers dropped. The German trap was triggered. Snipers fired from windows. Machine guns blasted the rooftops. Troops stormed the street. But the ghost wasn't there. He had fired from a rooftop 4 blocks away. They found the position empty, just footprints leading into a burned apartment and vanishing into dust. For months, the Ghost of Warsaw had haunted the German occupation like a living curse. Soldiers whispered his name with fear. Officers changed their routes. Snipers refused to take rooftop positions. Patrols moved in groups of 8 or more. Night movement became restricted. But even with all these precautions, he kept killing, one bullet at a time, one ghost-like disappearance after another. And the Germans were unraveling. The Gestapo headquarters. He must be stopped now. Inside the thick stone walls of the Warsaw Gestapo headquarters, the commander paced back and forth, sweating through his uniform. On his desk lay maps of the city, photos of dead officers, empty cartridges stamped with German markings, reports describing the same killer over and over, but one new detail terrified him more than anything. Several German soldiers had begun refusing to patrol certain districts at night. They claimed, "We hear footsteps that aren't there. We feel watched. We see shadows that move." Fear had mutated into superstition. The commander slammed his fist on the desk. "This ends now. Tonight we will force him out." The curfew of Iran, a new decree, covered Warsaw like a dark cloud. Full city lockdown after sunset, shoot-on-sight authorization, patrols doubled, snipers on vantage points, blocked with armored cars, random raids on apartments. But fear does not stop a ghost. It only sharpens him. The ghost watched the new patrols. He studied their repetition. He saw a flaw. The Gestapo headquarters itself had become predictable. Officers arrived at the same time each night. Lights went out at the same hour. A single guard smoked outside the side entrance at 22:45 every night. Routine, and routine kills. The ghost enters the lion's den on a cold, moonless night. He made the most dangerous decision of his life. Not to shoot from the shadows, but to walk directly into them. He approached the Gestapo headquarters wearing a stolen German coat, hood raised, face in shadow. The guard outside was, as always, smoking. The ghost walked past him. The guard glanced at him. Perhaps he assumed it was another officer. Perhaps he didn't want to make eye contact. Perhaps he sensed nothing at all. And in that hesitation, the ghost struck. He grabbed the guard's head, pulled it backward, and drove a knife silently under his jaw. The body slumped without a sound. The ghost dragged him into the darkness, took his keys, and slipped inside the most fortified building in Warsaw. The message he left behind inside the hallway. He moved like water between shadows. He avoided the main staircase. He avoided rooms with light under the door. He avoided echoing corridors. His target was not a man, it was a message. He reached the map room, the heart of Gestapo operational planning. Dozens of maps covered the walls, marked with resistance hideouts, suspected sabotage routes, Jewish ghettos, assassination points, and, ironically, sniper nests they believed were his. He pulled a piece of chalk from his pocket, and in the center of the largest map, he wrote in clean, sharp letters, "You do not control this city." Then he left. Sightlessly. Without killing another soul. The Germans would not find the message until the next morning. The discovery at 0620. SS officer entered the map room and froze. He shouted for the commander. Gestapo agents rushed in. They stared at the chalk-written message, terrified. How did he get inside? How did he bypass every guard? How did he walk out again? One soldier whispered, "Is he even human?" Another soldier muttered, "He must be a Jew with supernatural help." The commander's face turned white. He wasn't superstitious. But for the first time, he doubted reality. The Germans been to break, rumors exploded inside the German ranks. He walks through walls. He knows our plans before we make them. He can enter any building. He was inside headquarters. He left a message on the commander's map. Fear became hysteria. The ghost had not just wounded the German army, he had shattered its confidence. The first assassination attempt that afternoon, the Germans retaliated. A soldier knocked on the door of an elderly couple in the old town, claiming he needed water. When the door opened, 6 SS men stormed inside. They expected to find the ghost hiding there. Someone had falsely identified the house. The couple protested. They were beaten. The house was torn apart. The ghost watched from a nearby rooftop, fists clenched. He could not intervene. Not yet. He waited until the SS men left. Then he followed them silently, and one by one, over the next 3 nights, those 6 men died. One at a market, one in a latrine, one while smoking outside a checkpoint, one dragged into an alley, 2 shot from rooftops. 6 men. 6 nights, 6 bullets. A warning. The symbol of Warsaw, meanwhile, inside the ghettos and ruined neighborhoods, a different kind of whisper spread. He was inside the Gestapo building. He killed the SS who raided the old couple. He protects us. He is fighting for us. Children drew crude pictures of a shadowy man on rooftops. Women prayed for him at night. Men secretly marked walls with the letter G. The ghost had become more than a sniper. He had become hope itself. Hope in a city built on despair. The ghost hunters set a final trap humiliated beyond measure. The Germans planned something new, a trap unlike any before, a trap that would close around him slowly, silently. They deployed disguised officers as civilians, snipers hidden in chimneys, machine gunners, waiting in cellars, undercover informants, planted near bread lines, patrols with fake wounded soldiers used as bait. But their biggest weapon was psychological. They spread a rumor. A German colonel will travel through Warsaw at dawn, alone, easy target. They counted on the ghost's sense of justice, his hatred for officers, his love for precision hits. They waited. Seconds, minutes, an hour. No shot, no movement, nothing. Then, a single bullet cracked through the morning air. The colonel fell, but the shot came from behind the trap's perimeter. The ghost had known it was bait. He had calculated their positions, predicted their angles, and bypassed them completely. The trap failed, again. The Germans were crushed. The ghost, a second message. The next morning, graffiti appeared on multiple streets. Do not set traps for me. I see everything. G, the German command panicked. The commander shouted, "He is laughing at us, lahing." His voice broke. He knew it now. There was no defeating the Ghost of Warsaw with soldiers or guns. Only one weapon remained: brutality. And what came next would turn the city into a nightmare. Warsaw trembled. The Germans had failed again. A colonel was dead. Their traps were useless. Their snipers were outmatched. Their commander was humiliated. And the Ghost of Warsaw was no longer just a nuisance. He was a symbol. Symbols are dangerous. Symbols create courage. Symbols spark rebellion. And so the Germans chose their cruelest weapon: collective punishment. If they could not kill the ghost, they would make the city bleed until he revealed himself. The Gestapo's new strategy. Fear forced into the streets. The very next day, the Germans rounded up dozens of civilians, men, women, even children. They lined them against a wall in the old town. A German officer shouted, "Ghost of Warsaw, you think you are a hero? You think you protect these people? Come out now, or we execute them." The ghost watched from a rooftop far away, heart pounding in his chest. He could not breathe. He could not intervene, not without revealing his position, not without dying instantly, not without failing everything he had built. The officer counted, "Eins, zwei, drei." Gunshots cracked. Bodies fell. The ghost closed his eyes. The city shook, and so did his soul. The shadow begins to question himself that night. He did not sleep. He sat in a dark basement, hands trembling, face buried in them. He whispered to himself, "This is my fault. I brought this on them." But then he heard footsteps above, 3 civilians in a ruined apartment talking softly. One said, "He fights for us. He gives us hope. He tells them we are not broken." Another replied, "If he stops now, we all lose." The ghost lifted his head. He understood. The Nazis were trying to break him with guilt. But if he stopped, the city would break instead. And so he wiped his face, steadied his hands, and whispered, "No more fear." The Nazis plot a new trap. The net. The Germans realized something important. The ghost did not attack randomly. He attacked. Officers, abusers, patrols, hurting civilians, snipers, collaborators, so they designed a trap using bait he couldn't resist. They selected an SS officer notorious for cruelty, one who burned homes, beat prisoners, and executed civilians. They forced him to walk through the streets as if unguarded, but hidden around him were 22 Gestapo agents disguised as civilians, 14 snipers in windows, machine guns behind boarded shops, 6 soldiers inside delivery wagons, 2 dogs tracking gunpowder, and a sealed perimeter 3 blocks wide, a perfect net. The commanders smiled coldly. "Ghost, you cannot resist this one." But the ghost did not take the shot. He watched from a distant rooftop. He saw the positioning, saw the pattern, smelled the trap. He whispered, "Too perfect, too clean." Instead of shooting the officer, he shot the street lamp above him. The glass exploded, showering the SS officer in sparks. The Nazis panicked. Snipers fired at shadows. Dogs barked uncontrollably. Civilians screamed. The ghost walked away, laughing softly under his breath. The first time the ghost was seen 2 days later, something unexpected happened. A boy, perhaps 10 years old, saw a man slipping between 2 collapsed buildings at dawn. The boy froze. The man turned. Their eyes met. The boy whispered, "The ghost?" The man lifted a finger to his lips. "Quiet." Then he vanished. The boy told his family. His family told neighbors. Soon the entire district whispered, "The ghost is one of us. He walks among us." His legend grew. The Germans grew desperate. The biggest operation yet, Night of Steel. The Germans unleashed the largest single sweep Warsaw had ever seen. 600 SS soldiers, 200 Gestapo agents, 150 military police tanks, sealing major roads, checkpoints, every 200 meters, snipers on every visible rooftop, dogs patrolling alleyways. Their plan: close the city like a cage. The commander roared, "He is in this zone. We will catch him tonight." They searched every building, every cellar, every attic, every destroyed home. Civilians were dragged into the streets, beaten, interrogated, but the ghost was watching the entire event from below. The ghost's secret: the sewers of Warsaw. Warsaw's sewer system was ancient. A maze beneath the city, dark, damp, foul, perfect for a shadow. The ghost slipped through a broken manhole hours before the sweep began. He crawled through tunnels, listened above for boots and barking dogs, and waited for the Germans to exhaust themselves. At one point, an SS patrol stood directly above him. He could hear their footsteps through the metal grate. One soldier muttered, "This city hates us. I swear it's alive." Another replied, "No, it's him. He's everywhere." The ghost smiled despite everything. The closest they ever came, but the sewers were not completely safe. The Germans had begun using dogs trained to detect human scent through grates. One dog barked violently above a sewer cover. The handler shouted, "He's Bello! The ghost is Bello!" Soldiers ran to the spot. They began lifting the grate. Water dripped from the ceiling. Rats scurried past. The ghost looked up from the darkness. He was trapped, cornered. No escape to the left. The tunnel had collapsed. No escape to the right. A dead end. No escape behind. A flooded shaft. Only one path remained. Up, through the soldiers, through death itself. He steadied his breath. He prepared his rifle. He waited for the grate to lift, when suddenly a massive explosion shook the street above. A resistance bombing 2 blocks away. The soldiers abandoned the sewer grate and ran toward the blast. The dog barked after them, confused. The ghost exhaled slowly. He survived. By seconds. The man the Nazis almost caught. The Gestapo commander slammed his fist into the wall that night. He is not a man. He is not. One officer whispered, "Sir, with all respect, perhaps we are not meant to catch him." The commander's face turned pale. Because deep down, even he believed it now, Warsaw's ghost was beyond their control, beyond their reach, a force of nature. The ghost makes a vow that night as he crawled out of a sewer drain into a ruined courtyard. The ghost sat on a fallen pillar and looked at the sky. The city was quiet. Smoke drifted in the air. He whispered to himself, "They want to break this city, but they will break before we do." He vowed something that would define the rest of his life. "As long as I breathe, they will fear the rooftops." Warsaw breathed through broken lungs. Smoke, hunger, and winter frost filled its streets. But beneath the ruins, beneath the despair, the people carried a spark. The ghost is still alive. And as long as he haunted the rooftops, even the smallest child believed the Germans could be defeated. But the Germans were done playing games. They wanted him gone. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. And so the war for one man reached its darkest chapter. The Nazis turned to terror at sunrise. Loudspeakers crackled through the city. "Residents of Warsaw, a known resistance sniper hides among you. Until he is surrendered, we will take hostages." The ghost listened, jaw tight, breath cold. He expected cruelty. But what came next went beyond cruelty. It was evil. By noon, the Germans forced 15 civilians onto a truck, 6 men, 5 women, and 4 teenagers. They marched them into the center of the square. Then a Gestapo officer announced, "The Ghost of Warsaw has until sunset to reveal himself. If he does not, these people die." Civilians gathered in silent horror. Mothers screamed. An old man fainted. Children wept. The ghost watched from a shattered window 5 stories high, breath frozen in his lungs. His hands trembled, not from fear, from rage. His rifle was ready. He could kill the officer. He could kill the execution squad. But then he'd be trapped. He'd be surrounded. And all 15 would die anyway. He whispered to himself, "Think, think." This was not a battlefield. It was a chessboard. And the Germans were playing to break his mind. The shadow strikes back. He made his move. Not at the square, not at the execution site, but behind German lines where they least expected. While the city held its breath, the ghost slipped through alleys, through ruined buildings, through darkness. He reached a German officer's car, placed an explosive beneath the engine block, then disappeared. At sunset, an SS captain tried to start the car. The explosion swallowed him. The square erupted in panic. German soldiers ran toward the blast. Civilians screamed. The officer in charge panicked and ordered, "Release the hostages. He is near. Find him." The hostages were dragged away, beaten but alive. The ghost had saved them, not by shooting, not by confronting, but by making chaos his ally. The first time he bled, but the Germans were closing in. And the ghost could not stay perfect forever. 2 nights later, he took position to ambush a small German patrol. 5 men, relaxed, laughing, unprepared. He aimed at the officer. But just as he squeezed the trigger, a 6th soldier, hidden behind a collapsed column, fired blindly into the darkness. A single bullet tore through the ghost's shoulder. He gasped a rare sound, a sound he'd never allowed himself to make in battle. His rifle clattered on stone. Blood filled his coat, warm against the freezing air. He rolled away, teeth clenched. The patrol scattered, searching the shadows. He crawled into a drainage ditch, breathing like a dying animal. The Ghost of Warsaw was no longer untouched. He was hurt, badly. The ghost fights himself. He stumbled through alleyways, holding his shoulder, blood dripping onto cobblestone. He looked up at the moon. His vision blurred. He whispered, "Not here, not like this." He reached a doorway. A woman opened it. Her eyes widened in shock. She recognized him. She helped him inside without a word. Her husband tore his shirt into strips and began stitching the wound with trembling hands and a rusty needle. Simo Heiha would have tolerated such pain, but the ghost was human after all. He screamed. The woman held his face. "You must live," she said. "You're all we have." He nodded, sweating. Hours passed. Finally exhausted, he slept. The Nazis smell blood. The next morning, the Germans discovered blood on a rooftop where he had fallen. The Gestapo commander smiled for the first time in weeks. He is wounded. He bleeds. He is mortal. He unleashed a new order. No patrol moves alone. No soldier removes his helmet. No officer walks without escort. All wounded individuals are to be inspected. The Germans were no longer afraid. They were hungry. The train escaped. The ghost knew he had to leave the district. His wound was slowing him. His reactions were sluggish, his aim shaky. The Germans were tightening the net, so he did something reckless. Suicidal, he boarded a German supply train. At dawn, wearing a stolen coat and hiding his arm inside a sling, he walked among workers loading crates. No one looked twice. Trains left the Warsaw station every morning carrying food, ammunition, supplies. If he boarded one unnoticed, he could reach the other side of the city, or escape entirely. But fate turned the moment the train whistle blew. A German sergeant approached him. "You, show me your papers." The ghost looked up. Their eyes met. The sergeant's face tightened. Something felt wrong. The ghost reached slowly into his pocket, not for papers, for a knife. But at that moment, the train lurched forward. The sergeant lost balance, grabbing onto a rail. The ghost seized the moment, slamming the man's head into the metal frame. The sergeant collapsed, unconscious. The ghost leaped onto a moving carriage, shoving crates aside, hiding among them. The train accelerated, shouts erupted behind him. "Halt! Halt the train!" But the engineer heard nothing. Within seconds, Warsaw shrank behind him. He escaped by inches. The city mourns a ghost. When the Germans found the sergeant's body hours later, they believed the worst. The ghost of Warsaw has fled the city. Some soldiers celebrated, some cried in relief, but civilians whispered, "He will return." And he would, but not unchanged. The first and only mistake, his wound infected. Fever took him. He stumbled into a ruined church, collapsed near the altar. He hallucinated flames, gunshots, screaming children, faces he had killed, faces he had saved. He whispered, "Am I still a man, or just a shadow?" His mind drifted, his strength faded, and for the first time, the ghost of Warsaw was vulnerable, a dying shadow in a dying city. The woman who saved him, a nun, found him. She gasped when she recognized his face, thin, pale, blood-soaked. She dragged him into a hidden infirmary beneath the church. Resistance medics worked on him through the night. They drained the infection, cleaned the wound, applied new bandages. When he awoke, a priest stood over him. "You have become a symbol," the priest said. "But symbols are frail. A dead symbol helps no one." The ghost answered, "I cannot stop now, not until they leave our city." The priest nodded. "Then you will rise again." And he did. Winter returned to Warsaw like a blade. Cold winds cut through ruins. Smoke drifted from chimneys in the ghettos. Boots echoed endlessly on cobblestone streets. And somewhere among the rubble, a shadow walked again. The ghost of Warsaw, wounded but alive, no longer perfect, no longer untouched, but more dangerous than ever. For a wounded animal fights hardest, and a wounded legend becomes unstoppable. The Gestapo gets a breakthrough after months of humiliation, after hundreds of soldiers lost, after failed sweeps and ruined traps. The Gestapo finally got what they needed. A witness. A Polish informant, desperate for money, terrified for his family, approached the Germans secretly. He whispered, "I know a man, a quiet man. He disappears at night. I have seen him with a rifle." The commander's pulse surged. A suspect? After all this time? He leaned closer. "Name?" The informant trembled. I don't know his surname. People call him the Watchmaker. Silence. The commander froze. A watchmaker, a quiet man, precise, patient, invisible. It fit perfectly. The Gestapo had a name now, or at least a life to hunt. The raid. The night they almost had him, the Germans descended on the watchmaker's former apartment. Dozens of soldiers, snipers, dogs, spotlights. They stormed the building, broke down doors, searched every room, dragged 3 innocent residents into the street. But the ghost had not lived there in months. Still, they found something. In a loose floorboard, they uncovered a broken rifle sling, a single rusted cartridge, a fragment of chalk, and a small leather pouch containing watch gears. The commander lifted the gears carefully. This is him. A chill went through the room. The ghost was real, human, identifiable. Now the Germans were no longer a rumor. They were hunting a man. The ghost learns he has been found. The resistance messenger found him that night. They raided your old home, she whispered. They know. The ghost did not flinch. He simply closed his eyes. He had always known this day would come. Then I must move faster, he said. But inside, for the first time in months, fear returned. A cold, sharp fear. Because ghosts should not have identities. Once someone names a shadow, it becomes mortal. The final campaign. The ghost returns to hunt. For the next 2 weeks, the ghost unleashed a storm of precision violence unlike anything Warsaw had seen. He struck checkpoints. He ambushed convoys. He eliminated informants. He shot through vehicle windshields. He executed SS officers in broad daylight. His shoulders still ached, his vision blurred. His breath came with difficulty. But he fought like a dying man with nothing left to lose. German morale collapsed. Soldiers muttered, "He is not afraid anymore. He is coming for all of us. He must be stopped before he destroys the whole command." The commander slammed his fist into the table. "He wants war. We will give him his war." The trap of all traps, Black Square. The Germans designed a final absolute trap. Not a sweep, not bait. Not a decoy, a kill zone, a real one. They secretly evacuated 3 whole streets of civilians, cleared buildings, mined alleyways, placed snipers in attics, mounted machine guns at every corner. In the center of the block, they placed a single SS general known for brutality. He was their bait. And for the first time, they guessed correctly. The ghost saw the general, recognized him as the man responsible for deporting hundreds to Pauiak prison. He could not resist. He positioned on a rooftop, ignored the pain in his ribs, steadied his breath, and fired. The general collapsed instantly. But this time, panic. No screaming. Only silence. A terrifying silence. Then, the street exploded. Machine guns roared. Snipers opened fire. Spotlights erupted to life. The ghost's cover was shredded. Wood splintered, brick exploded, glass shattered. He rolled aside, coughing blood. They had him. This was it. The trap they had dreamed of. The end of the Ghost of Warsaw. The impossible escape. Bullets rained down like a metal storm. 2 hit the rooftop inches from his skull. 1 grazed his leg. Another tore through his coat. He crawled desperately toward a chimney stack, the only remaining cover. A grenade detonated nearby, sending stone fragments slicing into his back. He collapsed, breathing ragged, vision darkening. He whispered, "Not yet." Through blurred eyes, he saw a narrow metal gutter leading down the building's side. No human could climb it, especially not wounded, especially not under fire. But ghosts do not follow rules. He grabbed the gutter. Bullets sparked around him. He slid halfway down before it bent, snapped, and sent him falling 3 floors into a pile of snow. His body screamed. Pain like fire ripped through him, but he was alive. Barely. He limped down an alley, blood dripping behind him. A spotlight swept past too late. Shots rang out, but he had already vanished into a crack between 2 collapsed buildings. The Germans swarmed the streets. Search teams kicked in doors. Dogs barked. Snipers scanned rooftops. But the ghost was gone. Again. By seconds. By seconds. By sheer impossible will. The last sighting 3 days later, a group of starving civilians in the ghetto reported seeing a man walking along the rooftops. They described him as limping pale, covered in rifle on his back, moving like a shadow that could barely hold itself together. One woman shouted up to him, "Come down! We can hide you!" He stopped, looked at her, and shook his head. His voice was barely a whisper. "No, a ghost cannot stay in one place." And he disappeared behind the ruins. It was the last confirmed sighting of him during the war. What became of the ghost? No body was ever found, no grave, no record of capture, no confession. Some say he fled the city and joined a partisan group. Some say he died in the ruins and was buried secretly. Some say he escaped through the sewers and lived under a false name. Some say he continued killing Nazis until the Red Army arrived. But the most chilling rumor is this: German soldiers reported shootings in Warsaw even after the city was completely evacuated. A ghost that refused to die. The legend lives after the war. People spoke of him in whispers. He fought for us. He protected us. He gave us hope. He made them fear our city. His victims were never celebrated, only his courage. Today, historians debate whether he was one man, a collection of snipers, or an exaggeration of wartime rumor, but eyewitnesses insisted, no, he was real. We saw him. He was one man. A man who turned an entire city into his battlefield. A man who fought alone against an empire. A man who wore no uniform, gave no speeches, and sought no glory. A man who became more than flesh. A ghost. A myth. A symbol of resistance that no bullet could kill. And as long as Warsaw stands, so will the legend of the Ghost of Warsaw.